Good afternoon, and thank you for attending today's Imperial Irrigation District Division 4 for Board of Directors Candidates Forum, sponsored by the Coalition of Labor, Agriculture, and Business, as we know it, COLAB. The election for this seat is November 3rd, 2020. We encourage you to vote. This forum is being conducted via Zoom due to the gathering restrictions set by the County of Imperial. We are mindful of the need for the safety of the community. My name is David Cañas Jr., and I will be the moderator for this afternoon. The timekeepers will be Kate Pricola and Shelby Deal. As a trade association, we make a concerted effort to educate our members and the public of the candidates for office in order to provide them with the best possible information with which to make personal decisions in their election process. I would like to recognize the candidates for office in attendance this afternoon in the order their names will appear on the ballot. Mr. Javier Gonzalez and Mr. Eric Ortega. The format for this afternoon's forum is as follows. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for an opening statement to review their qualifications, thoughts, and major platform items. There will be 3 questions asked by the moderator pertaining to the issues for the contested elected office. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond. Following the answer from both candidates, 2 minutes will be allowed for each candidate to rebut the other answer. Questions submitted by the public at noon today will be asked as time permits at the end of the forum and prior to the closing statements. Questions that are deemed as personal attack or defamation, as well as those that contain obscene language, will not be asked. The question must be directly related to the responsibilities of the IID Board of Directors or the experience of the candidate. COLAB reserves to defer duplicate or redundant questions to ensure that the vast number of issues facing IID are addressed. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for rebuttal to rebut any statement made by the other candidate for each of the public questions. This change in the normal co-op form has been requested by one of the candidates. Again, personal attacks, defamation, or obscene language will not be permitted. If this occurs, we will ask KXO to edit this portion of the forum. No other changes to the forum will be made. Again, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. The moderator and timekeepers will hold the candidates to their allotted time and the period by utilizing a timer. The moderator will advise when only 20 seconds remain, and I'll have a sign like this. When 10 seconds are left, you will get a sign like this to please pay attention to it. At the end of the 2 minutes, I will tell you are 0, and Ms. Dill will mute the transmission if it exceeds by 5 seconds. Based on the random drawing by the Imperial County Election Department to determine the order on the ballots, our sequence for opening remarks will be used. Introductions are limited to 3 minutes allotted for each candidate. Gentlemen, we will start with Mr. Gonzalez. Your opening statement, sir. 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, COLAB, for inviting me. My name is Javier Gonzalez. I'm a lifelong resident of Calexico. Been involved in the community, in politics, and public service for more than 30 years. A lot of people should know me. I, Javier Gonzalez, am running for the position of IID Director because I believe the position today is no longer about just keeping the lights on and the water flowing. I believe the position now entails rolling up our sleeves and using our political power that comes with the office and be actively involved in all aspects of our community. Leading in grassroots initiatives and taking an active participation at all levels to help make sure the communities that we serve and represent are safer, healthier, more eco-friendly places to live, play, and grow, to be the responsibility of every elected representative. This cannot be achieved if elected representatives do not take a true leadership role in grassroots initiatives and actively lead at all levels, working hand in hand with the people they serve. But of course, this position is about IID, a public utility agency. With a century of service, IID has many projects, agreements, issues that will need my attention. For that, I will use my extensive education and experience in the area of public affairs. We will study the issues, research all sides, and seek advice from the expert, and most important, go back to our constituents in public forums to get their input and then their concerns. That is not happening today. I am one of the most decorated community citizens and university student leader. And I am one of 2 students in persons in the entire world that have won a major research competition with a New River and Salton Sea study, 2015. Nobody has done that, and they haven't asked for our input. I believe they haven't even read the study. We know the beginning of IID. We know about pioneers like Fritz Cole, our first IID representative. We know about Rocco. We know everything about IID. And we know that they didn't just serve at IID. They were leaders in the community. They were involved in all aspects of the community. This is why I'm running. I believe that our incumbent has not represented the community. He has not met with people in the last 4 years. He's just trying to do right now. That is why I'm running. I believe that we can do more for the community. The Division 4, it's a shame to drive along Division 4, especially the old neighborhoods, South Heber. It's a shame. Our communities are blighted. They're ugly. I can help you. I can help you while serving at the IID. You got to remember, people, this position pays. It's like a full-time job. It's not just to go to 2 meetings, meetings. Our representatives need to be leaders. They need to be held accountable. I heard the beep. They need to be held accountable. They need to lead during Earth Day, Arbor Day, Roll Down City Day, planting trees. They need to be leaders in the community, and they are not. I believe they haven't met. They tried to say that they're active with giving community funds from IID. That is not the solution to our problems.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Ortega, your opening statement, sir, 3 minutes.
Thank you to CoLab for the opportunity to participate and to speak to voters. I am Eric Ortega, IID Director for Division 4 and a lifelong resident of Calexico. I ran for this seat 4 years ago because I believe that the people in Division 4 needed an advocate for progress in the public interest. Not a candidate looking for a job, but a proven leader who knows that public service is all about serving the public good. I have a record of accomplishment as an IID board member that I am proud of, and that I ask voters to compare against my opponent's awards and certificates, which he uses in place of a record. I think that if you're going to run for a seat on the IID board, you need to know what the district does and why it does it. IID is the largest irrigation district in the nation and the 3rd largest public power provider in the state. Its consolidated budget is just under $1 billion annually, and it employs over 1,300 people in 2 counties. I'm an independent businessman who understands budgets and balance sheets, but I also recognize that IID is a public service organization. It doesn't serve shareholders or investors because it isn't for profit. It's for the public. As IID Director, it's my job to represent your best interest in setting the water and energy policies of the district. But it is more than that to me. It is a chance to build up the community and the quality of life that we all share by putting our resources to work for all of us, not just some of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ortega. We'll now ask the question prepared by CoLab. The time allotted for these questions, again, will be 2 minutes for each candidate. We will alternate the sequence, starting with Mr. Ortega. And the question is, in November 2019, the Imperial County Board of Supervisors issued a declaration of emergency for the New River. Since then, there have been repeated discharges of raw sewage from the waste treatment plant in Mexicali. What action are you prepared to take as an IID board member to preclude raw sewage from the U.S. side of the New River?
Very well. I agree that I agree that what has been done over the last 75 years to address the problem of the New River is unacceptable. Unfortunately, to this point, we have accepted it, and why it hasn't been fixed. But I think that to address the issue of the recent sewage, I think what's going to help in all this situation is going to be the encasement project for Calexico. While it isn't a lasting solution, it's beneficial for the community, and I support it. At the same time, I would support any effort to elevate the issue as a policy matter in every level of government, and in the courts, frankly, because the situation has become intolerable. And I don't think the people who live in the Imperial Valley should have to put up with it anymore. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ortega. Mr. Gonzalez, the same question, sir, 2 minutes. Would you like me to repeat the question, sir?
Yes, sir.
In November 2019, the Imperial County Board of Supervisors issued a declaration of emergency for the New River. Since then, there have been repeated discharges of raw sewage from the waste treatment plant in Mexicali. What action are you prepared to take as an IID board member to preclude the raw sewage on the US side of the New River? 2 minutes, sir.
That's a good question. Like I said, I'm the only, myself and my partner are the only students, university students, to win a major research competition with the New River. 500 researchers, everything from the sea, sky. Ours was #1 in all areas. Now, in 2015, we invited all politicians that were at the New River. We told them that San Diego State every year submits 40 researchers and competes. Nobody was, they all were there when the politicians were there, but not one of them went to San Diego State to check out the studies. Now, how many times has this happened? How many emergencies? We have a solution with the wetlands. The wetlands work to clean up the New River. But a few years ago, the Congressional Task Force on the New River, they said it would take 32 wetlands to clean up the water arriving at the New River, at the Salton Sea. We've done 3 and we can't even maintain them. Why are they not looking at that issue? The wetlands work, and they're also an area for recreation, hunting. They haven't seen it. The wetlands work, and they will clean the water arriving to the New River. Now, if I were, we need to put pressure in Mexico. We need to do all of those things. But not one of our representatives, the new committee for the New River, they haven't even studied the research that we made. They haven't even invited us to discuss it. How do they want to fix the New River when they're not inviting, they're not checking out the studies at San Diego State? There's 40 every year regarding the New River. They haven't done anything of that. It's all politics. And we have a solution with the wetlands. We need to make 3 of them. There's only 3 and they can't even maintain them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Gentlemen, Mr. Ortega, you now have up to 2 minutes to rebut the statements made by Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes, I know that repeatedly Mr. Gonzalez has alluded to these studies he did while he was in college. My understanding is they were a long time ago, and he also mentions wetlands. But yet, this is the first I've ever heard about him. He's never gone to an IID meeting, never been to a Salton Sea Authority meeting, never emailed one representative that I know about in regards to these studies that he talks about. And my understanding is they were a long, long time ago. So a lot of things have changed since then. So I'm not certain exactly how they're supposed to be helpful in this situation. And then the wetlands, of course, come at a cost. He doesn't talk about how that would be paid either. That's it, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ortega. Mr. Gonzalez, rebuttal.
It's very aware that Mr. Ortega is not aware, because it was in 2015, and IID Director Benson brought it up in a meeting, and they even proposed giving us an award because of that study. And the main helper was the engineer for IID. We worked along with 21 agencies. Remember the New River is not just water; it's fishes, it's insects, it's soil, it's the air. So we worked 2 years with 21 agencies, national, international. So by Mr. Ortega saying that he hasn't even read it, he doesn't even know. The wetlands work, and they're still there. And this study was 4 years ago. And IID brought it up in a meeting. Mr. Benson said that IID should have given us an award. So he doesn't even know. He doesn't even know what's going on. And that just tells you a long, long time ago. Of course, there's money involved, but they work. We're looking for a solution. How many millions we already spent? This shows that Mr. Ortega is not aware of the New River, of the wetlands, and any projects in the community or at San Diego State. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Gentlemen, we're going to move on to the next call-out question, starting with Mr. Gonzalez. And question number 2, sir. IID has over 130 substations in Riverside and Imperial County. At this point, none have been paid for by the developer. This policy seems to be changing at the expense of growth, especially in Calexico. Do you support this potential policy change with the knowledge that the majority of substations in Coachella were paid in part by the ratepayer in Imperial County? Please explain your position.
Can you repeat the question at the end? I didn't understand the question at the end.
Okay, I'll repeat the whole question, sir. IID has over 130 substations in Riverside and Imperial County. At this point, none have been paid for by the developer. This policy seems to be changing at the expense of growth, especially in Calexico. Do you support this potential policy change with the knowledge that the majority of substations in Coachella were paid in part by the ratepayer in Imperial County? Please explain your position. 2 minutes, sir.
I'm not really sure what you're saying, but yeah, here in Calexico, let me tell you, we are at the capacity of energy. And if we need, I am all for going for private public. Now, yes, developers have gotten away with a lot. Here in Calexico, I used to work for the city. You used to see the plants, there were parks, there were right-of-ways. At the end, nothing happened. There were two bridges proposed for the All-American Canal. At the end, they weren't built. So developers are getting away with a lot. Taxpayers are paying a lot. And sadly, Coachella is part of IID's service. They don't have any representatives in the board, but we can appoint they are allowed to be appointed at the commissions. But yeah, Coachella should pay for their own utility, because we're Calexico, we're paying for Coachellas, and we don't even have the electricity to bring up another apartment complex and business. The marijuana cannabis business is halted because we're at a standstill in energy. Mr. Ortega didn't do anything. I was told that there were proposals from private investors. If we need the energy and if we don't have the money, why don't we go to public-private? But if you're asking about Coachella, yeah, they should pay their own. Everybody should pay their own. Because in Calexico, we're lacking energy. We can't be paying for other people's energy substations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ortega, do you need the question repeated, sir?
No, thank you so much.
Okay. 2 minutes, sir.
This is an issue right here in Division 4, as you just mentioned, where there are projects proposed in various stages of development that will require significant upfront investment needed for infrastructure. And these projects naturally want IID to absorb the cost as if it were a bank and then spread it out across the entire customer base. But that would result in an instant rate increase, which I just said, and I've said it multiple times, that I'm opposed to any type of impact on the ratepayers, especially now. So I would put the question to the public. I mean, do you want the financial burden of a rate increase to finance the startup costs of a private business, or should new growth pay for itself? If I have to choose, I'm going to say that if a project is real, it should be able to stand on its own and pay its own way. At the same time, the board has the latitude to consider projects on a case-by-case basis. And if an individual project satisfies a public purpose, including development of the regional economy, and it can be considered on its merits, I'm committed to the economic development and job creation. But every project, if it's real, needs to pencil out on its own and not look to IID to be its bank. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rosales, you now have up to 2 minutes for rebuttal.
Well, like Mr. Ortega right now said that I wasn't aware of a lot of issues. Yes, he's the incumbent. He's in there. When we're there, we're going to study all the issues. We're going to go to the experts, our committee members. We're going to appoint committees. And for the first time, I hear him that he's bringing up issues to the ratepayers, the community. That's good. That's the first time I heard that. But yeah, I agree with Erica. You know what? We shouldn't be paying for other people's services, especially the developers. Like I mentioned, in Calexico, they've gotten away with a lot. The bridges, parks, which were going to be parks, they're now retention basins. And we need to be holding them accountable. And I agree with Ortega on that issue that, you know what, maybe we should bring it to the ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Ortega, you have 2 minutes for a rebuttal, sir.
At this point, I don't have a rebuttal, considering Mr. Gonzalez agreed with everything I said.
Thank you, sir. We'll now move on to our next collab question, and we'll start with Mr. Ortega this time. And the question is, with a significant economic impact of COVID-19 and a projected reduction in farming in the near future, would you support the additional sale or leasing of water beyond the current transfer obligation? 2 minutes, sir.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question again,
Sure.
Mr. Gañez?
With a significant economic impact of COVID-19 and a projected reduction in farming in the near future, would you support the additional sale or leasing of water beyond the current transfer obligation?
Absolutely not. That is exactly what I've spent my tenure at IID fighting. is are for our water rights. As far as the transfer goes and what's already agreed to, as far as I'm concerned, that needs to continue, given that there are agreements that are signed. But anything above and beyond that would just impact and hurt the Imperial Valley. Our water needs to stay here. It needs to be put to beneficial use here. It needs to assist us in developing this Imperial Valley. Of course, if ag reduces due to the current environment, I'm supportive of anything that will help them, but not at the expense of the Imperial Valley and damaging our water rights or transferring any more water. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Gonzalez, the same question. Would you like me to repeat it, sir?
No, sir, I know the question. You know,
Two
for
minutes,
the
sir.
last 30 years, I've been an advocate for my community, for my neighborhood. I've been in a lot of fights, and I am a fighter. And a lot of people can say, I fight for this. Politicians, I fight for this, fight for this. They just vote for something. But fighting takes more. But I agree with Eric. You give the mouse a little piece of cheese, he's going to want it all. No, I'm not for that. I agree with Eric. They wanted some 1 or 2 positions in the board. Sooner or later, they're going to want a majority. I agree with Eric on this. If we give them a drop of water, they're going to want the gallon, and then they're going to want the 5 gallon. And I agree. We're going to fight hard. We're going to defend our water rights.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Ortega, 2 minutes for a rebuttal, sir?
Well, it appears we have a consensus on this issue as well, Mr. Gañez. So I don't need them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Gentlemen, those are the 3 questions that were provided by CoLab. And we're now going to start with the first question from public questions submitted today. And we'll continue with the same format. We'll start with Mr. Gonzalez. And the first public question is, what is your vision for a community benefit from San Diego County Water Authority water transfer that is almost $130 million annually? Should some of that funding be used at the Salton Sea? Unless specified, the question will be addressed to all candidates. Mr. Gonzalez, 2 minutes, sir.
Listen what's happening with the community fund. They're giving this community fund, and I've been criticizing Eric very hard, not personally, because we have a community fund at Imperial County, we have a community fund at IID, and we don't see the benefits. They're giving this community funds to political supporters. They're not using an RFP. Giving public funds requires an RFP. They need to be competition, there needs to be guidelines, and it should be handled by the IID Community Relations Department. The awarding should be given by a IID official representative, not politicians. We have to be careful with this community benefits because, to be honest, there's been millions of community benefits. I don't see any changes in the community. They've been giving them to these little groups. Most of those groups are nonprofit, but they don't have a committee as the 501c3 requires. That is why I'm very hard on Eric with giving out public community money himself, choosing who gets it when. That is wrong. So they're going to give me. I'm not going to support that until we set guidelines and how that money is going to be distributed. You know, it's got to be an RFP where everybody fights for the money equally, and there's a process. Right now, there's no process. Imperial County does the same thing. Politicians themselves choose who to give it to and when. That is wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Ortega, would you like the question repeated, sir?
Yes, please.
The question was, what is your vision for a community benefit from San Diego County Water Authority water transfer that is almost $130 million annually? Should some of that funding be used at the Salton Sea? Unless specified, the question will be addressed to all the candidates. 2 minutes, sir.
Yes, I truly believe that a good percentage of that community fund, whatever that amounts to, should be used at the Salton Sea, considering that these transfers are impacting the Salton Sea greatly. Less water going to it, it's receding, it's causing a major health crisis for the Imperial Valley. And I don't think our citizens should have to be exposed to that. So should this community fund be used for the Salton Sea? Absolutely. That is who is paying for the water transfers, is the Salton Sea and the residents of the Imperial Valley with their health. So I would be in agreement to use that money for the Salton Sea. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ortega. Mr. Gonzalez, you've got 2 minutes to rebut.
Yes, not rebutting Mr. Ortega. I agree with Mr. Ortega, but I didn't say yeah. If we get money, it should be used for the Southern Sea. But we have to be very careful if it has some attachments where we're required to do something. If it's just given out of courtesy with no attachments, I'm for it. Now, another study I saw, one of the students was we should start planting cedar trees all around the Southern Sea so they can hold back the dust that we're gonna have, because it's coming. Maybe we should get out the prison crews to start planting cedar trees all around the Southern Sea, so they can start these sand dunes where they do hold the dust that's coming. We're not doing that. We should plant them now, and if we do accept that money, it should be used for that. And the other programs that the North Shore is doing, those are great programs. But I'd be careful accepting money if there's an attachment. If they're giving it free, and if we have set policies how that money is going to be used, I'm for it.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Ortega, a rebuttal on the question.
Other than just clarifying that this community fund that's been mentioned here, if it is a community fund, it would be something contractual related to the transfers. So at no point can we consider these monies free. Do they come with some type of requirement or sacrifice? Of course they do. But they're certainly not free, and it's contractual. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to our next question. And we'll start with Mr. Ortega this time. The current IID board is considering entering a project labor agreement, a PLA, for all construction projects. It is certain that this will increase the cost of IID projects and will increase the workload on IID staff to monitor and report to the union for this work. How is this beneficial to the people of Imperial and Coachella Valley? No IID project has ever been slowed by a striking workforce, so why would the IID board consider PLAs for all projects? 2 minutes, sir.
I don't believe that the project labor agreements make projects cost more. I think they make those projects work better for the people doing the work. So I reject the idea that a PLA produces a rate increase. As for the employees, you know, it's better for them. It has local hire provisions. It has apprenticeships, which is a pathway to careers. It's a reinvestment of our tax dollars in our community. I mean, a lot of individuals have been getting the short end of the stick for a long time. And I know of a project at IID that took place, that was completed in 2017, which was over $14 million, well, actually, give or take $13 million. And there was no project labor agreement on that particular project. And yet, there was a recent labor commissioner decision in regards to that project where there was employees misclassified. So I'm starting to understand how it is that a PLA can cost more for contractors, because it actually makes them follow the law. The individual that fired this claim, after like what, 2017, he just got the money he needed to feed his family with. I mean, if this is how we reduce costs for IID, I'm not for it, but I am for the project labor agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ortega. Mr. Gonzalez, same question. Would you like me to repeat it, sir?
No, sir. You know what? I've been a critic of this PLA agreement, not because I'm against it, because we have a lot of questions. It needs to be studied, it needs to be talked about to the community, and that's not happening. Even an IID director was questioning Ortega that it was moving too fast. That is what I oppose. I'm a pro-union, but our local unions haven't helped the community. They're not involved. I hate to say it, but it's only about money. Unions are here to build America. Yes, I support unions, but remember that they work for public. When there's no money, there's no money. When there's money, it's nice to give them a raise, but they should see how the community is. You know, sometimes the community doesn't. Here in Calexico, especially Division 4, we're the highest tax state. Right now, we have another proposition for the school. We just approved one. Now we have another proposition. Our property taxes are going to go up like $300-400 for our houses. I heard others are $3,000-4,000. So we got to be careful about these agreements. And I can't say Mr. Ortega knows more. He's been working with unions, with all this. I'm not privy to a lot of this information. I've just been reading what the coalition against it has been posting. But it's some issue that we need to bring to the community, study it well, do workshops throughout the valley. Then maybe I can give my opinion. But right now, I'm lost on this issue, to be honest. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Ortega, 2 minutes for a rebuttal, sir?
Yes, I would just like to address the issue of unions not doing anything for the community. I mean, I've asked them to do the electrical work on one of the parks in Calexico. They also land leveled Cordova Park in Calexico for free, in addition to food drives, in addition to other things that they do. So I resent that remark that unions don't do anything for the community. I mean, if it wasn't for that land leveling at Cordova Park, I don't know where that project would be. If it wasn't for their assistance in one of the parks that needed lights, I don't know where that project would be either. So I just want to clarify and let the public know that unions are doing a lot for Calexico. And there's even another park I wasn't involved with that they did the lighting on about 5-6 years ago. And this is for free. This is prevailing wage work where they can make significant amounts of money per hour that they are doing for free on their own time. They are not with their families, but they're out here for the community doing this work. So thank you, and that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Ortega. Mr. Gonzalez, so you have 2 minutes for a rebuttal.
Well, Mr. Ortega just said, I want to let the community know. Well, we see them out there. The people don't know if it's IID or who they are. Maybe Mr. Ortega should put up a community information and let us know about those programs. At least I don't go into the union's website to check what they're doing. But here is where the miscommunication is. Ortega just criticized me. I don't know. I saw them working there. I don't know if it's free or the city's paying for it. That is what Ortega doesn't have, communication with the community. You just said it right now. I'm letting the people know. Why didn't you let us know before? There were trees cut right here. He was here when they were cutting it. Why didn't he come before and tell us what's going to happen? He took credit. He is not connected to the community. Maybe the unions are doing a lot. We don't know. I'm a very active people. I got my neighborhood watch. I have the health and safety in Calexico. A lot of. I never read about it. Yeah, I heard that politicians say, "Oh, you know, these guys are doing this for me," but officially, Ortega announcing before this project is going to be, these are the guys that are going to do it. We don't know anything about it. So if the unions are doing that, we thank you very much. We need more of those, especially in our neighborhoods. You know, neighborhood watch. There's a lot of stuff that benches are broken. They can help, but we need to let the people know who's doing it then. And Ortega's not doing that. This is the first time in 4 years we've seen him talk to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. We'll move on to the next question, gentlemen. And the next one is, IID Press recently reported on the campaign expenses and donations through the mid-September 2020 reported cycle. Are there new donations yet to be reported? Mr. Gonzalez, 2 minutes, sir.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. The IID Press, Imperial Valley Press, recently reported on the campaign expenses and donations through the mid-September 2020 reported cycle. Are there new donations yet to be reported?
For me, it's just about $800. I am not taking any dollar or donation from unions, special interest, or farmers. It's just senior citizens give me $10, $20, several supporters $100. But as far as my last report was 1,700 for this new year, I think it's gonna be like 1,200, and I'll report it. But I'm not taking a dollar from special interest, from unions or farmers. But yeah, I think that from the primaries to now, I think it's like 1,300 for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Ortega, same question. Would you like me to repeat it, sir?
No, Mr. Cañas, thank you. As of the last reporting period, my campaign has not received any new donations. But of course, if anybody's interested in donating, they could go to my website at ericortegaforIID.com. Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez, any rebuttal to the comments?
I don't know. Is he paying for everything? What about the flyers that the unions are sending? That is like in-kind contribution that counts. Although the support he's getting in favor, but just I don't know. I can't say anything because I haven't checked out. But he said he hasn't received anything. I've seen a lot of movement, radio ads, and all that stuff. So I don't know.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ortega, any rebuttal to the question?
Well, yes, just to clarify, I believe your question was, as of the last reporting period, have any new donations been received, correct?
It's through the mid-September reported cycle.
Yes, yes, okay, just, I wanted to clarify that for Mr. Gonzalez, because it doesn't seem he understood. And as far as any efforts by unions are concerned, as he mentions, those are independent expenditures that do not coordinate with me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Gentlemen, we'll move on to the next question. Several cities are in line for the canals in the vicinity of schools and homes to be undergrounded, with IID paying up to 75% of the cost. The Birch Canal has a portion of it still open. If re-elected or elected, what action would you take to complete this safety concern? Mr. Ortega, 2 minutes, sir.
Sorry, Mr. Gañez, this sort of cut out. What, could you repeat the question again, please?
Yes. Several cities are in line for the canals in the vicinity of schools and homes to be undergrounded, with IID paying up to 75% of the cost. The Birch Canal in Calexico has a portion of it still open. If re-elected or elected, what action would you take to complete this safety concern? 2 minutes.
So, yes. So in regards to the Birch Canal, I've actually had discussions with the residents that are in close proximity to that canal for some time, given it also impacts the easement into that neighborhood. And we've discussed what the costs are, and IID's actually allocated some land for that undergrounding of that canal to so that the flow can continue to the ground that it irrigates. But at this point, I have been discussing that initiative with one of the other directors who represents the division, and we're getting pretty close. But it is absolutely important because, of course, safety is a priority for the Imperial Irrigation District, and if we can get that accomplished sooner than later, I'm all for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ortega. Mr. Gonzalez, same question. Would you like me to repeat it, sir?
No, sir. That's a question that hits the heart and hits home. I'm a neighborhood watch captain for Kennedy Gardens. You know, Kennedy Garden was built next to the biggest man-made canal in America. We used to swim there. There's an agreement between the city and IID to fix the holes. None of them are doing it. We still have the hole where Damien drowned 2013. Yesterday, we caught a guy, he opened the entire fence. It's gonna take like 20 years to fix it. We have 7 holes in the canal, in our bridge next to our neighborhood. They've been there for 7 years. And it's us, the neighbors, who've been closing them. This agreement between the city and IID needs to be deleted. It's IID responsibility, not the city. Now, regarding to those underground, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to pay for that because one life is too much. Sadly, that should have been paid by developers and all this, but like we tell you, developers get away with it. We never see improvements with development fees. So I'm all for covering it, and then maybe we can get our money back through developers or some other action, but one life is too much.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Ortega, you have 2 minutes for a rebuttal, sir?
Yes. So as far as an agreement between IID and the city, I'm not privy to that. What I do know is that there are jurisdictions. There's a jurisdiction that belongs of those fences that are along the American Canal pertain to the city, and then there's some that pertain to IID. I think that when there are holes, as opposed to smearing the agencies that haven't fixed them, and being a good neighbor and reporting them to the agency and saying, hey, there's a hole here and we need you to fix it. That's probably a better policy than just telling everybody, hey, they're not fixing it, they're no good, and then just leaving the hole there, as was indicated, for years, as opposed to just picking up the phone and saying, hey, could we fix this hole? That way it can be repaired, whether it's the city or IID. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
I'd like to
Ortega.
rebuttal for that. 30 seconds. Can I get rebuttal?
You have a rebuttal, sir, up to 2 minutes.
Okay. I supported Mr. Ortega in 2016. He knew about those fences. He told us he was going to fix them. We've called IID. We've put it on our website. He knows about it. He's our leader.
Lies, lies, lies.
Sir,
Oh, Mr. Ortega, we supported you. That's the first thing we told you. The hosts, they're still there. That's all I can say. We'll put it on your
Mr.
website
Gonzalez.
tonight. Thank you.
let's move on to the next question, gentlemen. And the next question is, COVID-19 has created a financial issue for IID with the non-payment of bills. So far, no resident or business has been disconnected. What will be your position on this policy in January 2021? And we'll start with Mr. Gonzalez.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. COVID-19 has created a financial issue for IID with the non-payment of bills. So far, no resident or business has been disconnected. What will be your position on this policy in January 2021?
Regarding Mr. Ortega's mirroring the agency, you know what? IID is a great agency. It's one of the best. What we criticize is our leaders. Our leaders are here to tell IID to give direction. The employees that get along with the employees, they get their assignments, what to do every day. So we're not being the agency. The agency is one of the best. Regardless of who gets elected, IID will continue to be on the leading edge of water delivery and energy. What's at stake here is our representatives' responsibilities and engagements in the community. Mr. Ortega just said that I was lying. We have a lot of proof where we told him about when he won in the Facebook about those fence holes. But yeah, IID is doing a pretty good job with those installment programs, and I don't think they're going to cut anybody's electricity. But in the end, they're going to pay at the end, but not right now when we're going through this COVID. But I want to applaud IID because of the agreements that they have with the people. It's very hard that they cut your electricity. They work with you, and I think they're doing a great job on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Ortega, same question. Would you like me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
COVID-19 has created a financial issue for IID with the non-payment of bills. So far, no resident or business has been disconnected. What will be your position on this policy in January 2021? 2 minutes, sir.
So far, the deficit caused by this board's policy decision to suspend cutoffs for non-payment during the pandemic is just under 8 million. And that is a direct hit to the budget that management must address. And this really shows the difference between an investor-owned utility that regularly passes the cost of doing business, even in a public crisis, onto its customers, and a public provider that acts as a buffer and a financial shock absorber for its most vulnerable ratepayers. So frankly, if this pandemic is still in place, IID needs to figure out a way in supporting its ratepayers through this crisis, because that's what the public utility is for. And it belongs to the public. It belongs to the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ortega. Mr. Gonzalez, you have 2 minutes for a rebuttal, sir.
Maybe we should, IID, I agree with Eric on that. Maybe IID should start looking for federal help. Federal help, I don't know if they're done. There's grants, there's help from the federal government, the state government for these programs. Maybe we should start seeking that to pay for the people that are not working. I don't know if the IID, like I said, the incoming has a lot more information. But if IID is not doing that, maybe they should look for public funding from the federal government. We need our leaders, right, the representatives to be active, not only on the New River, but on that issue too. So I'm not aware if IID is trying to seek funding from the federal government, the state government, for this type of help. But if we're not working, people are not going to be able to pay. First we got to put food in the table. A lot of people are not working. Our wages here are low. We have a lot of senior citizens that are living on a $700 budget. So that's my rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Ortega, do you have a rebuttal to that, or?
Yes, I would just mention that IID, of course, retains federal lobbyists as well as state lobbyists. And unfortunately, up until now, there's been no relief provided to public utilities in the federal stimulus bills or any other California state legislature that has surfaced. So at this point, all that is being monitored and explored. But as of right now, there's no relief. There's relief for transit agencies and other governmental agencies, but for public utilities, for one reason or another, they're not being inserted into the language. And we're part of various public utility groups or organizations that partner up to lobby. And even with that, we're still not seeing any relief. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ortega. Next question. How do you maintain low energy rates and upgrade the failing infrastructure for future development in Imperial Valley? And we'll start with Mr. Ortega.
Okay, what was the question?
Question is, how do you maintain low energy rates and upgrade the failing infrastructure for future development in Imperial Valley?
Yes, so as far as maintaining low rates, that is what the board is inclined to do and has committed to do. As far as failing infrastructure, that gets explored every day, and there's monies allocated in the budget for the O&M of all that infrastructure. If the question is related to adding new infrastructure, which goes back to the substation question and subsidizing developers, well, yeah, there is nothing allocated for that. But there is for the O&M of the existing infrastructure that IID has. Thank you.
Mr. Ortega. Mr. Gonzalez, the same question, sir. Would you like me to repeat it?
Yes, sir.
How do you maintain low energy rates and upgrade the failing infrastructure for future development in Imperial Valley?
That's a good question. That's something we're going to have to study. I can't give you an answer right now. We have to study, but let me tell you that South Heber and most of Calexico, they're very, very blighted. They need upgrades. Again, we're not bashing the agency. It's our representatives that need to address this. We're at the limit of energy. Our alleys, some of them are the light posts, the electricity posts are old. There's a lot, but it's not the fault of the IID. Our representatives should be addressing this, making plans, 4-year plan, 5-year plan, but definitely we need to upgrade our community. It's very blighted, very old. It's starting to disintegrate. How we're going to pay for that? That's a good question. We'll need to study, sit down with the expert. Even though I have 5 degrees, studying 5 countries, I'm not an expert in everything. That's why we have, IID has the experts. There's people out there from both sides. We're going to have to look at this very carefully. And also, maybe public workshops, everything that's going to bring up cost. I'm for doing public workshops. If the IID doesn't do them, I can organize neighborhood chats in my district, in my division. I've been doing it for years, talk to different neighborhoods and just sit down and discuss our issues. How we're going to pay for it. That's the most important thing. We all want to do things. How we're going to pay for things. But you know what? Our neighborhood, we've been able to organize a lot of programs with minimal cost. A lot of events we've organized. There's an Arbor Day celebrations. We've planned the Adopt a Park. I started that park. I've been adopting for 20 years. People have been helping putting benches. People have been helping planting trees. It doesn't cost anything to the government. We're gonna have to look at how we fund. I also work with San Diego State where we build the alumni center. I think most of the donations were from the public donations from people buying a window, buying a door. There were blocks, blocks. Everybody. We're gonna have to look at all methods of financing our infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ortega.
Yes. Is this the time for the rebuttal, sir?
This is everybody. I'm sorry, sir.
Oh, I was waiting for you. Okay. Okay, thank you. Yes, so Mr. Gonzalez again has mentioned aesthetics and various other issues related to blight in the city. And again, IID's role is to deliver water and power. It's not to address graffiti or potholes in the street or dry parks or close down buildings in Calexico, for example. That's not the role it has. Its role is to deliver water and power. So I just want to make that clear. There seems to be some confusion as to what IID is supposed to do, and it's has nothing to do with all of those roles and beautifying the city as well. That is what the city administration is there for, and the county as well when it comes to unincorporated areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ortega.
A rebuttal.
Mr. Gonzalez, you have a 2-minute rebuttal?
This is the difference in this election, people. The power of the representative. Eric thinks I don't know about IID. I have 5 degrees related to public affairs. I have a master's in public administration. I work with IID. I know what IID is for. Our representative is what we're questioning. He can do a lot more. His power, he can be involved in all this. I mean, I organized the Earth and Albert Day celebration cleanup. Not a lot of people come, but if our representative organize it, I bet you 1/3 of the people come, but they don't do that. That is what's at stake here, people. What are IID representatives doing? Because people look up to them. People see them as leaders. They don't care if they're just IID or school. They're our leaders. They should be out there. It is the responsibility of every representative to keep a safe, healthy, and environmental community. That is the difference. Eric Ortega just said it. He just focused on IID. We're going to focus on IID, but we are, our people look up to us as leaders. And he just mentioned he's not a leader. He's not a leader. All he's doing IID. I understand what IID is for. He said, I have 5 college degrees, studied government in 5 different countries. So I know what government is, what these public agencies are. So he's trying to say that he knows. I don't know what studies he has, but all my 5 degrees are related to public administration.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. John, I have one more question. As an IID director, one of the responsibilities is to represent IID on other board and various committees. The majority of those meetings are outside the Imperial Valley. Is there a reason that you would be unable to travel outside the Imperial Valley to participate in those meetings? Mr. Gonzalez, 2 minutes, sir.
Of course not. I want to question Mr. Ortega because the 4 years that he's been a representative, I've been to city council and I never seen him at the city council meetings. He needs to be there in every meeting. He hasn't been there. I've been there. So whether it's Calexico, with its housing authority, we're going to be in those meetings. It's not just IID, like I said, not just IID. Our leaders need to be in the meetings with different community organizations. That is what we're doing. But of course, we're going to be, there's a lot of committees for the Colorado River, Coachella, all the way to San Diego. Of course, there's no problem. There's no problem for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Ortega, same question. Would you like me to repeat it, sir?
Yes, please.
As an IID director, one of the responsibilities is to represent IID on other boards and various committees. The majority of those meetings are outside the Imperial Valley. Is there a reason that you would be unable to travel outside the Imperial Valley to participate in those meetings? 2 minutes, sir.
No, and I have a track record of traveling outside of the Imperial Valley. In my term as president of the IID board, we were going to Sacramento every other week while we were combating this horrible bill that wanted to split the IID in 2 and add more seats to the IID board, which was challenging IID's autonomy. In addition to that, I served on the Salton Sea Authority, which had its meetings in the Palm Desert area. We'd have to travel to San Diego and various other places as well. We've had to travel as far as Washington, D.C. when it came to talking about the Salton Sea as well. So no, my record shows that when I have to travel to represent the Imperial Irrigation District, I do. I asked you to repeat the question because Mr. Gonzalez brought up city council meetings. So I wasn't sure if you were talking about local or outside of the Imperial Valley. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Rebuttal, Mr. Gonzalez, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, like I said, I brought up the city council because he can't attend city council meetings. Maybe he's attending outside, but he has the responsibility, he has the duty. But you know, typical politicians, they don't get elected, we don't see him again. That's not Mr. Gonzalez. That's not Mr. Gonzalez. Where regarding of this election, I'll continue to be the same. But I brought up the city council because I don't know what meetings he went to, but if he can't go to the local meetings, especially when half of our city's dark, start talking about those issues, because again, our representatives are our leaders. We look up to them, not only for IID, we look up to them for solutions in the community, and we don't have anything. That's why I brought up the city of Calexico. I'm not privy to what meetings he's been to, but that's his duty as an IID director, and that will be my duties too.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Ortega, rebuttal for that?
Yes. I've been working with the city council very close throughout my term, as well as the school board, and we've accomplished many things, especially at the city. When it came down to Applebee's, for example, at some point they were exiting Calexico. So through a joint effort by way of the county, the city, and the IID and various discussions, that restaurant stayed. As everyone knows in Calexico, we don't have much. And that's one of the venues that everybody frequents, along with others. If that would have gone, we'd have less, of course. In addition to that, the Federal Express site that provides jobs that pay a living wage and expanded, that came up against obstacles. And between me and the city, we were able to overcome them. And now that project is done. And several others, including the school district and various issues they've had. So I stay very close to the community and with those officials that are the policymakers so that it can have a direct impact to the community. Now, I think Mr. Gonzalez thinks that I don't reach out to a community because I don't reach out to him, but anybody watching this forum probably understands why at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ortega. Gentlemen, this completes our time allotted for public questions. And just to inform you, all questions submitted, the candidates will receive a copy of them so that you'll know that you got all the questions. So now we're going to move over to your closing remarks. Time limit for this is 2 minutes for each candidate. And we'll start with Mr. Ortega. 2 minutes, sir.
Yes. Since 2016, I have used my vote and my voice on the ID board to keep power rates low and to put ratepayers first. This electric utility was one of the first in the country to suspend disconnections for non-payment, acting at the outset of the pandemic as a shock absorber for ratepayers. This was an effort that I led and was proud to support. In 2019, when I was president of the ID board, the district partnered with Joe Kennedy nonprofit Citizens Energy to build the first community solar project in the nation today. 30 megawatts of new solar generation that provides energy to 15,000 ratepayers. That same year, when Riverside County politicians and developers from Rooftop decided to run a bill to come after IID, I fought them. And I'll do it again. I believe that IID can act as a catalyst for change on behalf of the public that it serves, and that it can help to promote a greater and more equitable and Pearl Valley. That to me is real equity, the kind that treats people with dignity and respect that they deserve, whether they're farmers or farm workers. And that is the future that I want to help build for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ortega. Mr. Gonzalez, your closing statement, sir. 2 minutes.
I want to let the people know that, we know the beginning of IID. We know about pioneers like Frick Cloak, or our first IID representative, or Charles Rockwood. We know that they're the pioneers of water and IID, but they're also leaders in the community. And that is what is at stake here. Ortega keeps on talking about these programs inside IID. We'll have those programs. Whether I get elected, he gets elected, those programs will continue. IID is the leader, the innovator, leading in sustainability, and that will continue whether I'm there or Eric is there. What is at stake, people? It's our communities. And Eric is wrong. Yes, the main responsibility of the IID director is the issues at IID. But they have a lot of time that they can work with the community, and that is not happening. We need to sit down and work together with school board, with the county, with the city to start addressing this issue. If one of our residents calls me and tells me a problem, that's not IID problem. That's not Javier. I'm gonna try to help you and solve your issues because I'm also a citizen. First and foremost, I'm a citizen, not an IID director. That is what at stake here, people. Like I said, I have 5 degrees, more than 170 degrees because of my service, public, political things. So I'm very well aware of everything. And like I said, those programs that Eric is doing, they're gonna come to us too. We're gonna be more active, more aggressive. We are more active, more aggressive. So we may be bringing more than what the income has done in the past 4 years. He's represented us for 8 years now. Yes, for an ID, but as a representative, he's been there 4 years. There's issue in the school that he didn't solve too. So that's what's at stake here, people. give me the opportunity to represent you, to serve you. You don't lose nothing. Democracy calls that we change representatives. 8 years is enough. He's been our representative for 8 years. Like he said, I am one of the most active representatives, active leaders in the community. He said he's not reaching out to me. Why? Political? He needs to reach out to people even if you don't like him. Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, we thank each of the candidates and the public for their participation. We encourage all citizens of Imperial Valley to vote with already mailed ballots. You may also take those ballots to the polls on November 3rd, 2020 to vote. This forum concludes our series of forums for this election cycle. This video will be available on the CoLab webpage and the podcast available on KXO Radio. Thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Cola.
Thank you, Mr. Ganges.